evening and welcome to Spotlight. My name is Nuang Falong. You're watching MX24 television. Now, what are the prevailing issues out there today? The Supreme Court has, in a majority 5-2 decision, ruled that Assin North Member of Parliament James Quayson can no longer perform parliamentary duties. This is, of course, until the determination of the substantive case filed against him at the Supreme Court. Now, a Cape Coast High Court in July 2021 nullified the election of Mr. Quayson after it found that he owed allegiance to Canada at the time of filing his nomination forms to contest the polls. Michael Ankomanimfa is a resident of the constituency, and he was the person who filed this election petition in January of 2022. He also initiated another action at the Supreme Court. Now, he also urged the court to give effect to the Cape Coast High Court's judgment and prevent breach of the Constitution by restraining the Member of Parliament. The Supreme Court has, at this point, decided that Mr. Quayson can no longer perform parliamentary duties. What are the reactions to this particular ruling out there? We know lawyer for the plaintiff on this particular case, who is Mr. Frank Davis, has applauded the Supreme Court's decision to restrain James Quayson from holding himself as Member of Parliament for Assin North. He also says that this is in line with the Constitution of Ghana. We know also that Attorney General Ms. Godfred Dame has been commenting on this issue. Let's take a listen to those reactions and come back to Spotlight to continue the discussion. Stay with us.
The seats for me, the people of Assin North will not be represented, and I think that we're not for all these legal gymnastics that have been employed by the lawyers for Assin North. Perhaps the by-elections should have been conducted long ago. And I, in my view, think that there should be even nothing in the way of the Electoral Commission to declare the seat vacant. The High Court has ruled, given a judgment determining the status of the gentleman as not qualified to have stood for election, and had actually cancelled the election conducted at in the Assin North constituency. And the Court of Appeal subsequently struck out this appeal for non-compliance to the Court of Appeal. So there's no appeal pending. And I think the way is clear. But of course, the Supreme Court has ordered an expedited hearing and determination of this matter. Yes, I believe that the Supreme Court hearing definitely will also affirm all the principles of law that have indicated had early on been established by the courts of Ghana. I don't think there is any right for representation which has been imperiled at all. I mean, it must be established clearly that the Supreme Court has always exercised its powers to grant an injunction in constitutional matters. Way back in 1996, the Supreme Court granted an injunction against the MPP in the case of Rosemary Kwame against the MPP. The MPP was injuncted from proceeding to elect a candidate on account of the fact that the Supreme Court has exercised the power to grant an injunction. It's a court of law and equity, and therefore the main basis for determining whether an injunction ought to be granted is whether indeed a clear case of unconstitutionality has been established. And as I indicated in argument to the court, each passing day that the gentleman continues to unlawfully go to Parliament, he breaches the Constitution. So it's a running unconstitutionality. And I think that the Supreme Court is in its right to halt such a patent and running unconstitutionality.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I was Attorney General speaking on that particular ruling. Later on in the program, we're going to be looking at torture allegations while in detention by one of the Fix the Country conveners, Oliver Baka Vormawor. In the meantime, we have Honorable Murtala Mohammed, who's Member of Parliament for Tamale Central Constituency. He's on the line now, and we're just going to go to him for some comments on this Supreme Court ruling. Honorable, good evening. Thank you for joining us on Spotlight.
Good evening to your cherished viewers, except that I can hardly hear you.
Right. I'm not sure why that is, because I can clearly hear. Can you hear me?
It's a bit better now. Perhaps Nanado has visited our folks.
Honorable,
Honorable,
let's stick to the substantive matter. Was the ruling of the court anticipated? I know the opposition NDC has been waiting for this particular ruling. What way was it expected to go?
Well, first and foremost, it is good, or it is important to explain the circumstance and put it in context.
Right.
I listened to the Attorney General, and I was expecting to hear what I read he said on social media, that he likened the case to the case of Adam Second. and if it is true he said that, then we have a disaster at hand as Attorney General, because there is no way anybody can compare Honorable Kwesi's case with that of Adamu Sekendi. There is no way for any Attorney General to have compared that. For me, that is a disaster, because in the first place, this gentleman, Honorable Kwesi, renounced his Canadian citizenship. And as a matter of fact, he did that, and it was not a fault of his that the Canadian government delayed in giving the certificate for renunciation. It has to do with COVID. And before he contested the elections, someone took, in fact, challenged his eligibility. The Electoral Commission, which is mandated with the exclusive authority to conduct elections in this country, investigated the issue and cleared him to contest the elections. Adamu Sekendi's case was that, as at the time he was in Parliament, he was holding his United Kingdom citizenship. And he also indeed doctored documents when the case indeed for his prosecution started. So it is shocking that we have an Attorney General who is trying to compare these two. Is it not strange that my good friend Odami, who lost several cases when he was practicing as a lawyer, and as Attorney General he wins virtually every case? That is a matter to discuss on another day. But let me state that the NDC is a law-abiding political party. The processes have not been concluded yet. We can still go for a review of this decision of the Supreme Court. That is left with him and his lawyers to decide. But I am just explaining that there are still processes. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that the hurried nature with which this prosecution went on and the attempt to deny the NDC of that seat is because of the happenings in Parliament. And lawyer Chachuke Chikata couldn't have captured it perfectly when he said that there was a judicial attempt to reduce the number of NDC caucus in Parliament.
Honorable, Honorable, don't you think it's more of an attempt to enforce constitutional principles?
Nobody, and that is why we are not saying that they didn't have the right to do what they did. But we are given reasons based on the circumstances. You know, why they rushed into doing that. This gentleman eligibility was challenged. As a matter of fact, in court, the Electoral Commission disagrees with the Attorney General and the move to strip him of his, parliamentarianship. The Electoral Commission, which is clothed with the exclusive authority to conduct elections and the capacity to determine who is qualified, even on law. But the point is that the Supreme Court has given their ruling. There are still processes. We can still go for a review of the ruling. But one thing I can assure the MPP, inshallah, there is no way they can have that seat. That gentleman is eligible to contest, and he will win the elections hands down. The information we are picking is that even MPP people in that constituency are angry with their government. It is so shameful that they engage in some of the things they engage in.
When you say he's going to win hands down, yes, Honorable, does the NDC intend to replace him or still push him forward as a candidate for the seat?
Why would the NDC replace a candidate who won the elections in a keenly contested elections of almost 4,000 votes? I don't speak for the NDC as a party, but I can tell you that the NDC will maintain him. His constituents want him to be maintained. Everybody wants him to be maintained. I sat in the same parliament with him, and I know the depth of knowledge and experience he has, and the contribution he made towards our democratic processes and governance through the legislative arm. So I don't think that the constituents would have had a better person to represent them than Honorable Kwesi. And I still believe that they will certainly not have a better person to represent them than Honorable Kwesi. If he and his lawyers decide that they are not going to go for an appeal or a review of the Supreme Court decision, then it means that we will go for the by-elections. And I have no doubt in mind that he will be the NDC candidate for the by-elections. And inshallah, he will win the elections without any doubt.
Thank you so
much. And all
much.
of us be informed. We will all descend into that constituency And we see how they are going to rob the election just as they did in several constituencies across the country.
Honorable, but this for the moment affects the numbers of the minority in Parliament. Wouldn't this go against you in parliamentary duties?
Well, they have also 2 of their members who are not there.
Okay.
You remember recently they engaged in an absolute illegality in the so-called approval of the most disastrous and wicked extortionist system of taxation, the e-levy, when they had 136 members in the chamber. Honorable Adjosafo wasn't there. The Minister for Chieftaincy Affairs was not in the chamber. And remember, this one is also contested in the Supreme Court for the interpretation of a clear violation of Article 104 of the 1992 Constitution. So I'm saying that it will not. And mind you, constitutionally, over 50% of members of Parliament are appointed as, of ministers are appointed from Parliament. The NPP have demonstrated to us they are not ready to build consensus, and we'll show them where power lies. We are not going to build consensus with them on any issue. We are going to demand that the spirit and the letter of the Constitution and standing orders are adhered to at all points in time, at any time in Parliament. And it is very clear that they won't have their numbers in Parliament. They risk losing the governance of this country, because that is what they want. They risk losing the smooth running of this country if they want to have all their members and ministers in Parliament at all points in time. Some of these ministers would have international engagement. Some of them would have engagement in this country. And since we are dealing with people who are unwilling to build consensus, we would also be unwilling to build consensus. And let's see who would suffer the brunt of respecting fully, without any reservation, the constitutional provisions that govern the conduct of business in Parliament.
Thank you so much, Honorable, for your point there. We also have joining us on the line Abraham Amaleba. Let me just quickly go to him for his initial comments. I'll come back to you in a moment. Please stay with us. Abraham Amaleba is a private legal practitioner, and he has joined us on the phone lines. Hello, good evening, sir. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Now, as a member of the NDC's legal team, one of the members of the NDC's legal team, Baba Jamal, has vehemently disagreed with the ruling. Is this your position as well?
Today is a sad day for democracy in this country.
How so, Honorable?
Yet another sad day for this country. After the people of SAL have been denied representation, the next group of people is Assin North. And how can you then describe this country as a democratic country when a chunk of your people have no representation in Parliament? That is why it's a sad day. In matters such as this, it has always been the case that we ensure representation, not rather to ensure that there's no representation. One would have expected that because the substantive matter is still before the Supreme Court, for the time being, they would say that the MP should continue representing them till the final determination of the substantive matter. But what has happened is a clear case of denying the people of Assin North of any representation. And that is why it's a sad day for democracy in this country.
What would be the next action, you think, in this situation? To file for a review? What's the most appropriate way forward?
In a few minutes' time, we'll be entering into a meeting as a legal team.
Right.
And we'll decide on that, whether we want to go for a review. But any review will be predicated on the reasons given for the injunction. And we are waiting to see what reasons they will assign for the injunction.
What does this mean for the constituents presently? Will there be, I asked Honorable Mutala earlier if the NDC intends to replace this candidate going forward.
Well, the candidate is popular on the ground. He has told us in a meeting that any day that a by-election is conducted and he stands for the NDC, he will surely pick up a seat. He won by more than 3,000 votes. And so he's a very popular man on the ground. That is not our problem. Our problem is the use of the judiciary to reduce our numbers. That is our problem.
What does this mean exactly for the NDC's team? Has it demoralized the team in any way?
Has it done what?
Has it demoralized the team?
Oh, no. You know the person who is leading us, even though I started the case when the case was at the High Court, but it has been taken over by Judge Pepper. And you know his character, you know his commitment and his zeal. He can never be broken by anybody. And so we cannot, as followers or junior lawyers, be broken down when he himself, at that age, more than 70 years, is very strong. So we are not broken by it. We are only disappointed and not broken by what has happened.
Is he going to stand down, or will he continue to perform some duties?
Who am I talking about?
Assin North Member of Parliament.
No, as a Member of Parliament, the court has injuncted him, but that doesn't stop him from dealing with his constituents. He will still go and meet them. He will still go and talk to them and let them know that he's the best candidate if there's going to be a by-election.
Right. So there's a possibility of a by-election. Very interesting. Now, you're still watching Spotlight on MX24 television. Thank you so much for speaking. Please stay on the line. We're just going to go for a quick break. We'll come right back to Spotlight. Thank you.
If you're into content production for digital or TV, say hello to the MX24 Studios. We're the prime location for your music video shoots, live productions, TV shows, and more. From state-of-the-art equipment to a very skilled production team, we've got you covered. Step into our modern and spacious studio with a changeable lighting system and foolproof sound. Our touchscreen studio projection monitors come with other features, including Wi-Fi connection, screen mirroring, and a remote workspace mode. Take advantage of our high-quality cameras to shoot in 4K and a variety of the best lighting equipment guaranteed to put life into your sets. Locate us on the first floor of the Silicon House building off the Boundary Road, East Legon. Give us a call on 024-235-5956 or 054-454-8612. You can also email us at info@mx24gh.com.
Angelina, you be cool in my temperature. If you call,
say cheese, take a picture. Shaka post, make I see, take a picture.
and the leg book, boa.
Why the party there today? Hey mama, hey I ever say.
no topic is off limits.
The pain of experiencing a miscarriage is something that can crumple your world. We're talking postpartum bodies and everything in between. And they share their story on their battle with infertility.
The touching stories of the African woman rolls before you.
I was disappointed in God, in life, in myself.
How many losses have you had?
After that, we had 4 more.
What?
I shouted, I said,
we lost vision, we lost any sound beyond crying.
Our mistakes, advices, regrets, real stories, and more on We Got This Africa. Na Ashakor and her intriguing panel serve you real experiences of the African woman. We Got This Africa. We got this.
The Bible said that we are not of those who shrink back, but of those who believe to the salvation of the soul. You know, sometimes God wants to do things in circumstances and situations that when people see, they will acknowledge that this is not the effort of man, but this must be the finger of God. So to him, life meant Christ. Life meant living for Christ. Life meant serving Christ. Christ in you, the hope of glory.
ICGC Evangel Temple presents The Kingdom Culture with Reverend Eric Ampofo on MX24. This and every Sunday at 3 p.m. Don't miss out.
Hi there, I'm excited to come your way with football conversations, sports-related conversations, light-hearted, lifestyle-related conversations about the sport that we all love and are passionate about. Make a date with me.
All women were created differently with unique attributes. From managing a home to being entrepreneurs, through the ups and downs, we almost always win.
As I said, in the early stages of breastfeeding, what your body is using to make the milk is what you ate during pregnancy.
Adoption is a blessing. So if you want to adopt, it's a good thing to do, but just make sure that you do it in the right way.
The brand new season of the Talkative Mom Show is double the education, double the information, and excitement.
And then I actually realized nobody cares. Yes, nobody cares.
Yeah. Join me, Eno Kragren, and my guests this and every Sunday on MX24.
The Talkative Mom Show is proudly supported by Gokul's Healthy Options and Cerelac.
Thank you so much for standing by. This is Spotlight on MX24 television. We're discussing the Supreme Court's ruling on the case of Assin North Member of Parliament. These are the highlights of the case. The Supreme Court, in a majority 5-2 decision, has ruled that Assin North Member of Parliament, who is James Quayson, can no longer perform parliamentary duties. We're speaking with Murtala Mohammed, who is Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, also Abraham Amaliba, who is private legal practitioner and a member of the NDC's legal team. Let me just go back to the line to Abraham Amaliba, who I was speaking to before we went on that break. Sir, you did hint that there will be a meeting of the team soon, but how soon is the legal team meeting? Mr. Amaliba, if you can hear me. No, I think we're having issues with his line there. We'll try to reconnect with him. If he does get on the line, we'll bring him right back to you. But Murtala Mohammed, Honorable Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, is still on the line there. And let me just quickly go back to him. Honorable, at what point do you think there's a need for a by-election?
Well, that depends on election to Parliament by the Electoral Commission. It is only the who has the capacity to declare a seat vacant for the purposes of the organization by election. So we are waiting, but the case is still not
concluded. Yeah.
Like you, my brother, Amalba saying that, look, the legal team is up. They will take a decision whether they go for a review of decision of the Supreme Court. And mind you, if they decide to go for a review of that, it will take some time. And before they even consider, they would have studied the reason for the ruling of the Supreme Court. And in this case, the reasons for the Supreme Court will take some time. Perhaps we are looking at within 1 or 2 that give reasons in writing they took the decision took. And I guess that the reasons given by the determine the possibility of legal team going for a mind in the legal team, it has to be supported and endorsed by the member of parliament affected. Assuming without that the legal team per their discussion with the MP and their considerations given by the Supreme Court decide not for a review, the Electoral Commission will then be communicated. The Electoral Commission will indicate then, or perhaps the other way is that if the Mr. Speaker is reached by the courts through the Minister for Justice and then also write to the Electoral Commission informing the of the ruling of the Supreme Court. The Electoral Commission will then declare vacant for purposes of a by-election. But one thing that honorable question is extremely important. This attempt by the MP to use the judiciary of the MPP caucus has backfired at legendary fashion. If you go to the ground, MPP members, some of them are very angry at their party and what they know that they are going to be denied time. Parliament, we are on recess for just a month. It means that when we come back, Parliament processes haven't begun. They are not going to have a representative. It is only under this government we have some of the SARS still don't have representation. I'm saying that the people are angry and it will not have representation, that their interests will not be served in Parliament. Their needs will not be attended to in Parliament. In fact, what is worrying to them are not going to be attended to. Projects that the MP started in that constituency are certainly going to be truncated. And whose fault? It is the fault of the fault of MPP. And that is why.
Do you think it's time to expedite action on making it possible for dual citizens to hold political office?
I know there is a bill currently in Parliament, I think so, which is being looked at, and I guess, if I'm not mistaken, is at the committee level. So political parties will take interest, and the decision we take, pass or not, will be born on the nitty-gritties, the content of. But one thing I want to make very clear, that it's going to be a by-election. I don't know why the NDC would have to. And I have no doubt in mind that we will maintain honorable. And this time, I'm convinced he will win the elections more than he won it in the 2020. I'm very convinced about that. Because if you test, and I media find how popular the gentleman is, how comfortable the people are, regardless of sheets, with his representation. So if the attempt of the MPP government was to reduce numbers in Parliament, I'm sorry to say that it has backfired in a legendary fashion. We want to also assure that what they did in other constituencies in the election, they dare not try it in North. We will not allow that.
Honorable Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Murtala Mohammed, they're giving us his submissions. Thank you so much, sir. But let me go to the line where we also have another private legal practitioner joining us, Christian Mamhesi. Good evening. Thank you for joining us, Christian.
Hello, good evening.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're just discussing the Supreme Court's ruling 5-2 against Assin North Member of Parliament. What is your initial assessment of this ruling?
The only phrase I'll use is it's a very interesting ruling.
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah. Why is it interesting?
Basically because of the circumstances surrounding it, and if you take a careful read at my Lord, and that also the conclusion, that is what you put the interesting aspect of it. My worry that having come to this conclusion and putting him in a box, not put himself up as the member of parliament for that particular constituency, what happens to representation of the people of that constituency? And that vacuum has not been answered yet.
Interesting. For the constituents, but is there any action available to them?
I mean, nothing, because as it is, the injunctive plea has been granted, and what it looks more like is that aside the inherent jurisdiction of the Supreme Court being invoked, the substantive yet to be gone into, and devoid of that, they would not be represented. That is why I think it's been.
We're just speaking to Abraham Amaliba, who's part of the NDC's legal team, and he was saying the team hasn't met yet to make a substantive decision on this matter. But what options do you think are available to them?
I mean, any matter that goes to the apex court, and upon judgment or ruling where the full bench is attached, you have right to the legal thing of the estranged MP knows what to do. It is not for me to ask. They know what to do.
Thank you so much, lawyer Christian Malm Hesse. Please stay on the line with me. We're moving into the next issue on our table this evening, and which is allegations of torture by Oliver Barker Vormawor, who is a convener at the Fix the Country movement. And he alleged in a live YouTube broadcast on Monday that he was maltreated by security officials while under detention for allegedly threatening a coup on social media. That's why he was detained. And he says that he had to go through some maltreatment by security officials. How true is this? What does it mean for our democracy? What does it mean for security of persons in detention, or their rights for that matter? I'm going to be speaking again with Murtala Mohammed, who's made some comments on this particular issue. Also, I'll be speaking with Christian Malm Hesse, who's still on the line. He's a private legal practitioner. Adib Sani, who's a foreign policy and security analyst, will also be joining us for this particular conversation. But before that, let's take a quick listen to what Oliver had to say on Monday.
11th February 2022, I was unlawfully detained by the security forces of this regime, tortured and subsequently held without just cause for 35 days. Most of those 35 days I spent either in solitary confinement or in a jail cell with no ventilation, crawling with bedbugs, cockroaches and rats, and which was designed for 4 people but ultimately filled with nearly 30 detainees. Within those 35 days, I was exposed to what I can only describe as man's inhumanity to man. I was held in the rotten underbelly of our democracy, the parts of our society which we hide from public view. Persons we treat as if they are not human and do not deserve the protection of law. But also within that 35 days, we saw the real strength and integrity, resilience of our community become vindicated before Ghanaians of all walks of life. we witnessed the power of our ideals and the honesty of our beliefs become tested. We showed our humanity, our love for our country, and our commitment to our democracy.
And that was Oliver Barker Vormawor, a convener of the Fix the Country movement there, detailing some happenings during his detention. I'll go back to the line to Christian Malmhesi, a private legal practitioner. First question, did you have a chance to watch his broadcast?
Okay, no, I had that opportunity.
Right.
I've been listening to
just this snippet, yeah.
Interestingly, where they are looking at it, there must be a medical on his hip. When I say that we go to court with factual in order to reach cases, and especially and we're looking at his upholding his human rights and all of that free. Now, the medical would be a very corroborative, evidentiary piece, which would put out what petition he has been out to put with respect to put how do you call it? So that if you're in incarceration and
Christian, but after so much time, after so much time has passed, is it possible for medical exam to establish any such thing?
So that at the intensive case where his rights were being abused, he had right to counsel, unless of course that was denied him. But he had right to counsel. And
he does have lawyers.
Instinctively, his counsel should have known what steps they should take in order to bring to the attention of the court that is seized with jurisdiction over his matter, so that whatever claims that they have, they would file to that particular court for redress. But if in the instance, whatever medical has been corroded, that even if state is conducted, whatever damages or that he is complaining of cannot be accentuated and put before the court, then whatever is would not be factual, would merely be assertion, but not be evidentiary in law.
Okay, I'll take that.
Would merely be illusory than as sustained.
So if I hear you correctly, the evidence is not clear to you?
Yes, the evidence is that it must be factual, so that if his rights are being abused, he's been assaulted, there must be evidence to it that he has lacerations, he has some dark eyes, has some swollen cheek, he has something. So the medical opinion or the medical examination report should corroborate that. And based on it, you can law to plead and seek for his rights in court.
In the absence of that, does he not have a case?
You know, based on that, you know which options under the human rights that you are going under. But if there is nothing to show and it is merely that I have been done this or this has been done to me, and by that alone you want to go to court to say your human rights are being trampled upon, this would only satisfy the court of media, but it will not satisfy the court competent jurisdiction. Interesting.
It will only satisfy the court of media and not the court of jurisdiction. But let me go to Honorable Murtala Mohammed, who's also on the line, and he has also made some comments concerning this. I'll come back to you shortly, Christian. But he has also mentioned that he will be filing an urgent question into these allegations. Honorable, I mean, Christian raises questions of, credibility and what evidence is out there. Do you have similar concerns?
First and foremost, I disagree entirely with the lawyer.
Right.
When he says that there must be some evidence, evidential proof of either a swollen face or whatever, I would urge the lawyer to read the UN Charter on Torture, a charter that Ghana signatory to. It says, among others, that physical harm or even mental harm constitute a torture. And I think that he doesn't necessarily need to have any physical marks. If he feels that he was tortured mentally, if he feels that he was tortured mentally, that will be evidential enough in any court under this sun, not only in Ghana. So to say that because there hasn't been any physical, if you like, injuries on him, you doubt the allegation he's making. The only way we can establish the allegation or otherwise is to institute proper independent investigation. And I say proper independent investigation because I listened to the Deputy Minister for Justice and Attorney General yesterday, and today I was on the same platform with him on a sister media house. And he said things that were shocking to me. He said, among others, as if it is between Oliver and the state. It is the responsibility of the Minister for Justice, and I'll draw the attention of the Deputy Minister to it, that it is his responsibility and a duty to protect civil liberties and safety of any citizen of this country. The gentleman says he was tortured, and yesterday he said he has asked, and the information he got is that it is not true. He got the information from the very people who allegedly tortured him. And again this morning, he also said that the information he is privy to, information from the same security agencies Oliver is accusing for torturing him, that cannot be the absolute truth. And I demanded on him that they need to investigate to establish what he's saying. So the torture, the definition of torture as stated in the UN Charter Against Torture, which Ghana is a signatory, did not stop at just physical harm. That any harm, even mental or psychological harm on any person, can constitute a torture. So the gentleman...
Why do you think his lawyers have not made any, instituted any action against this?
Maybe they are yet to institute an action against it. But whether his lawyers instituted an action or not, all of us should be concerned. We are citizens of this country. And I listened, look at what he said. It's so graphic that a room that is supposed or designed for 4 people, they put 30 people in there, cockroaches, mosquitoes, and others. That can constitute a torture. That can constitute a trauma, psychological and mentally, for anybody. And per the definition of what constitutes a torture by the United Nations Charter, which you are signatory to, I think that the guy has a very strong case in the court across the globe, including Ghana. And that's why
You also mentioned that you'll be filing an urgent question into these allegations. How far with that?
I'm going to file an urgent question, and I will do that, God's willing, tomorrow. I was supposed to do that. Parliament, we are on recess, and we will be coming perhaps in 3 weeks' time. And I'm going to file it before we come back. We will drag the Minister for Justice and Attorney General or the Minister for Interior to come to Parliament to explain to the people of this country why the guy was tortured and what kind of investigation commenced in the matter of such a serious allegation made by a citizen of this country, by security agencies whose comfort are provided by our taxes. They owe us a duty and a responsibility to come to explain to us. So, and I expect that the minister, by the time Parliament comes back, they would have had something concrete to tell us. Because once the urgent question is filed, the question will be made available to the ministry involved by Parliament. And it is my expectation that by the time we come back, they should be able to provide answers. And I'm doing this not just for Oliver, but for many Ghanaians who are undergoing through such inhuman treatment, such torture. In fact, if you read the UN Charter for torture, it includes inhuman treatment. Now, Oliver has a platform that many of the inmates he met in the prisons do not have. So they may not have the platform to make it known to the people and to reveal what they go through. He has a platform, and he certainly couldn't have done something better for this nation than he has done, and all of us must support it.
Right. Thank you so much, Honorable. I'll just take your last remarks on that as we're running out of time.
Well, I think that it is the responsibility of everybody. We are governed and we are being led by a person who touts himself as the defender of human rights. Yet, the most abusive and attack on human rights we experience in this country happens to be under him. This democracy is what we have all agreed to charter, and we must jealously protect the tenets of those democratic principles. So this campaign for Oliver and many of his colleagues is to demand equitable distribution of resources in this country. Check the unemployment rate in this country, particularly youth unemployment, is over 19%, and these are not my words. If you check in the census, over 19% of young people in this country are unemployed. There is insecurity in this country. 2018 first quarter, the Ghana police themselves reported that the armed robbery in this country registered the highest ever in the history of this country. Just recently, the same report of armed robbery and insecurity in this country surged by over 40%. This should be of concern to all of us. And I think that the Oliver and his group are not saying anything extraordinary. They are just calling for those whose comfort and safety are provided by our taxes to act and act responsibly.
Right.
What is big about demands that are made, and for which reason people are being dehumanized? And in any case, why do you think that the gentleman, if he sincerely meant what he said and what he's posted on his Facebook, why do you think that he will come to Ghana knowing very well that should he come, he'll be arrested for attempting to engage in treason?
Thank you so much, Honorable.
On this. The deputy minister, when he said that they won't go after what the gentleman says on Facebook or on YouTube, but they don't act based on YouTube, yet he's been prosecuted for the very thing he published on the same social media. So in one breath, they are prosecuting him for publication on social media. In another breath, when it borders on torture, they are saying that we are not going to give it attention because it is published on social media. This is Ghana for you.
Thank you so much. Honorable Murtala Mohammed is Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. I still have Adib Sani on the line, who's a security expert. Adib, good evening. Thank you so much. Apologies for keeping you on the line. What do you make of this situation, especially as you listened to Oliver's submissions?
We have to put some few issues into perspective. And there are two angles to all of these. We need to be able to establish whether indeed he was specifically targeted and subjected to those inhumane treatments. Because if we talk about overcrowding, I mean, the IGP has raised this in the past. At the point he went to a police station and asked that they enter the cells, and after entering, he asked them, if you are put in there as a human being, how would you feel? It is certainly an issue that has come up for discussion. Even cows on a farm, you wouldn't overcrowd them in the manner in which we do to fellow humans. Okay, fine, they might be offended, but it still doesn't justify or rationalize whatsoever that they should be subjected to such treatment. On the other hand, we need to be able to establish that indeed he was singled out and tortured, as has been alleged. That would certainly be a no-no, because we are all, our rights is very well safeguarded in the Constitution of the Republic, and under no circumstance should the police torture any suspect, because you're still not guilty, you are just a suspect until the competent court of jurisdiction finds you guilty. Even if you are not supposed to be tortured. And like my brother rightly mentioned it, even the UN, is quite categorical about the fact that it doesn't have to be physical violence against the person, even if it is psychological. It's just like security. Security is not safety from harm. Security could also mean safety from the fear of harm. All right. So if I were in his shoes, certainly it's not something I'll be happy about, because it would have been worse. However, I would advise him to resort immediately to the appropriate mechanisms, whether he has to petition SRAJ or even Amnesty International, because this is an issue a lot more people have spoken about for some time now, and we seem to be not doing much about. And I think that is disturbing. and that would go a long way to make people cast doubt about, the system we have in place, and that I must say is worrying.
Thank you so much. Adib Sani is a foreign policy and security analyst, just giving us his comments there on allegations of torture by Oliver Vormawor, who's a convener of the Fix the Country movement. We also spoke with Honorable Murtala Mohammed, who's Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. We also spoke on the line with Christian Mamhesi, who's a private legal practitioner, and Abraham Amaliba, a private legal practitioner, also member of the NDC's legal team. My name is Nwong Falong. Thank you so much to you at home for staying with us through this program. On behalf of the entire team here at MX24, we are grateful. Stay with us online at MX24GH on all social media handles for more news and entertainment. Good evening.
If you're into content production for digital or TV, say hello to the MX24 studios. We're the prime location for your music video shoots, live productions, TV shows, and more. From state-of-the-art equipment to a very skilled production team, we've got you covered. Step into our modern and spacious studio with a changeable lighting system and foolproof sound. Our touchscreen studio projection monitors come with other features, including Wi-Fi connection, screen mirroring, and a remote workspace mode. Take advantage of our high-quality cameras to shoot in 4K and a variety of the best lighting equipment guaranteed to put life into your sets. Locate us on the first floor of the Silicon House building off the Boundary Road, East Legon. Give us a call on 024-235-5956 or 054-454-8612. You can also email us at info@mx24gh.com.
Angelina, you be cool in my temperature. If you call,
Say cheese, take a picture. Shaka post, make a see, take a picture.
and I like book, boah.
Why the party there today? Hey mama, hey I have a same. Shake your body.
No topic is off limits.
The pain of experiencing a miscarriage is something that can crumple your world. We're talking postpartum bodies and everything in between. And they share their story on their battle with infertility.
The touching stories of the African woman rose before you.
I was disappointed in God, in life, in myself.
How many losses have you had?
After that, we had 4 more.
What? I shouted, I said,
we lost vision, we lost any sound beyond crying.
Our mistakes, advices, regrets, real stories, and more. On We Got This Africa. Na Ashakor and her intriguing panel serve you real experiences of the African woman. We Got This Africa. We got this.
The Saturday nights just got better.
With unimaginable excitement.
10 toes, one girl, make it touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it, touch it.
Ow, ow, yeah. The most heated rap battles.
Squad for the work claim soldiers, but on your campo, Bema.
I flow you menace riding, it be me with the top. Godzilla self chop, who be King Kong.
And of course, your A-list celebrity interviews.
I've always said this though, there can only be one Bob Marley, so definitely there should be one episode.
Me? The threesome.
Orapu a comedy woman de. Yeah. Nyansa. Don't fuck. Lighter.
For myself, Oforiwa.
I'm Jason Alay, and I do this with the man,
DJ Varosky.